Gaza genocide, um, it's a done deal. Unfortunately, we can save more than 1 million people. We should work so hard on it. We should keep Gaza in the news. We should hold Israel accountable. We should also hold complicit Western politicians because Western governments knew what was going on. We're seeing the reports coming out now. They knew. And those Western leaders must be brought to justice. And in terms of our outreach to the general population in the West, we should tell people, especially those who are liberal, Democrats, support human rights and international law, that after what Israel has done, if this becomes acceptable, no one is safe in this world. That this has global repercussions, and this should matter to all of us. So we should campaign to, I say, basically dismantle Israel and establish a democracy here and hold Israel accountable. But we should also hold Western politicians accountable and make it quite clear that we understand that this is about basic human rights for everyone. We either have this in our world or we don't. And it's basically Israel versus anyone who wants a safe world.
Welcome to Jewish Activists for Peace podcast. Ofer, thank you again so much for being a returning champion and speaking with myself and our viewers. Many of them, or majority of them, are Australian viewers who have lots of questions, and you educate us incredibly on this topic. At the moment, we're hearing that Israel is hiding a lot of the devastation that Iran is inflicting on it. Is that true, being on the ground?
Yeah, there's a lot of damage, and I can just say, based on the footage that has been released on social media, the devastation caused by one of these huge Iranian missiles falling is tremendous. There's the direct impact, and there's the blast, which can generate a shock wave, smashing windows, not just the glass. I mean, the entire foundation, blasting through walls. So people are saying that some streets where the missiles fall look a bit like Gaza. Of course, Gaza is much worse. Gaza is it's a genocide, and it's something inflicted by Israel, a war of aggression. And here again, Israel is the aggressor against Iran. But just, I mean, in terms of of how it looks, what it looks like, it's quite devastating. At least I think 25 people have been killed, hundreds of people injured, a lot of damage. And Israel is trying to hide that. There's now a new decree by the Minister of Communications making it punishable to post, I think, footage or precise information showing the devastation without clearance from the authorities, or describing the precise location of the places where the missiles hit. So I would say yes, overall, Israel is trying to hide the damage. The population of Israel, people are afraid. They see the damage. Whenever a missile hits, people take photos, and it spreads um, like fire on WhatsApp and Telegram. This is something you cannot hide.
Mm.
So people see the pictures.
Mm. Yeah. What about the whole concept that Israel is defending itself against Iran? I've even heard our own Australian politicians, Penny Wong, saying maybe 3 days ago that Israel has a right to defend itself. Just thought I'd have a chat with you about that, and in your analysis with regard to international law. Can Israel describe what it's doing at the moment as defending itself?
So, first of all, what is Israel, especially after the Gaza genocide, but before that? Israel is a rogue nuclear genocidal apartheid state. This is Israel. And now this rogue nuclear genocidal apartheid state claims that it is attacking Iran. This is a war of aggression, waging this war as a means of self-defense. That's ridiculous. I'm not a legal expert, but I am seeing a very solid analysis coming from academia saying that this is a war of aggression. Aggression is a crime under international law. Israel has no right to do that. So we can sort of delve deeper into why Israel is waging this war. This is certainly not a war of self-defense, and all those hypocrites, these Western politicians, have failed to address the fact that Israel has nuclear weapons, that Israel is committing atrocities, genocide, now saying Israel has a right to self-defense and sort of legitimizing this war of aggression. And even more specifically, in addition, on top of being a war of aggression, Israel is targeting residential buildings in Iranian cities and killing civilians, killing children. So perhaps you could say that in these specific cases, they have someone on their target list, but they're killing children, civilians, they're killing scientists. Imagine someone saying it's okay to kill Israeli scientists. All those Western politicians would say, "How dare you?" You know, in in self-defense, it's okay to kill Israeli scientists who are involved in various government projects. Israel is doing that to Iranian scientists. So this is a war of aggression again, a crime under international law. These statements about Israel having the right to self-defense are ridiculous. And again, we can say more about why Israel is waging this war.
Yeah. Thanks, Ofer. Hot button issues, Ofer. If hopefully you don't get the siren that goes off and puts you into the bunker. But any hot button issues?
One issue is this war of aggression. So first of all eyes on Gaza. One of the reasons for this war is to distract from the genocide in Gaza, which is now at a horrific stage where people are being slaughtered on a daily basis in various concentration camps, these so-called aid distribution sites initiated by Netanyahu and the US, where people are being shot by the Israeli army as they're trying to collect aid. This is not humanitarian aid. There's a good reason that all the international aid agencies are running away like from the as if it's the plague from this project, which violates international law. It's a part of the genocide. Israel wants to distract, wants to make us forget that there's an ongoing genocide in Gaza.
Mm.
Regarding other reasons for this war, first of all, Netanyahu is fighting for his political survival, and he has realized, and he's right on that he is about to lose the elections based on what has happened so far, the failure in Gaza and all the pressure that Israeli society is under right now. He is about to lose. He is trying to reverse that with this war of aggression on Iran. That's one reason. Um, Another reason, perhaps, is that he wants to secure his legacy if he's going down, to go down as this hero who tried to do something very bold against our so-called arch enemy. And we can say more about what it does, the questions, does Iran have a nuclear weapon? Does it really matter? But Netanyahu has various reasons which all combine to form an incentive for waging war on Iran with, of course, the support and participation of the military establishment here, um, which wants to redeem itself after the failures of October 7th. And in any case, military establishments can only come up with military solutions. They're not going to say you should reach a some sort of political arrangement with Iran. And of course, they're not going to say the fact that Israel is a nuclear state drives a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, regardless of whether Iran even has nuclear weapons or wants to have them. I'm not sure at all. I think not. So it's this lethal combination of Netanyahu and our military establishment, which is supported by the liberals. So the liberals, even if they hate Netanyahu, they love the military, especially the elite units, the Air Force, the pilots, the intelligence units, where their sons and daughters and grandchildren often serve. So this is a deadly cocktail because, I mean, last Friday, people now are a bit less gung-ho, but last week on Friday, you could see all those liberals praising our glorious, intelligence and Air Force capacities, absolutely sickening. And some have even started, I think it's over by now, saying that, perhaps we were wrong about Netanyahu. Perhaps it is this Winston Churchill-like figure who sees the true dangers to Israel and acts accordingly. I think they are over that, but most of them, many of them at least, still justify the war and take pride in the operations of the military.
Wow. So I was watching an interview with a former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert, if I'm saying the name correctly at all. Ahud
Olmert, yeah.
Olmert, who described that the country is being run by thugs. And he said that a majority of Israelis do not support Netanyahu. The majority of them are hitting the streets every single night, in the thousands, against the Gaza war and against the Netanyahu government. Is that correct?
Uh, Not so much. I mean, there are fairly large demonstrations in support of a deal to bring back the remaining captives. This doesn't mean that those people protesting, so vehemently are care about the Gaza genocide. There is some growing sympathy for the plight of people in Gaza. It's not on a huge scale, and it's mostly about children in Gaza, which is important and more than what we had last year, but not enough. And overall, the protests are in favor of bringing back the captives, which could mean an end to the war, but they're not about ending the genocide or the suffering of Gazans in the first place. And so again, on October 7th, 8th, and beyond, for a very long time, most Israeli liberals who are anti-Netanyahu and kept criticizing him and blaming him for October 7th supported Israeli actions in Gaza, supported the military. The military is a sacred cow. And now, again, regarding the war in Iran, most of them justify the war and praise the military. So I think Olmert is telling us half truths here. He's quite manipulative, and during his term in office, some pretty awful things happened. For example, the Second Lebanon War, 2006. Um, Israel killed lots of civilians in Lebanon, and Operation Cast Lead, which was one of Israel's attacks on Gaza, 2008, 2009. Lots of civilians, children in Gaza were killed. He's also, I mean, and during his term, Israel bombed a nuclear facility in Syria, by the way. I think it was 2007. So basically, he supports the same aggressive policies. He's not as bad as Netanyahu, being as ruthless and not having any empathy for, for children being genocided. Um, but he's not an ally either.
Okay. Is there any hope for or any realistic chance for Yair Golan, if I'm saying his name correct, Yair Golan, who is more of a left-wing politician that we discussed in one of our previous interviews, um, in succeeding in the 2026 election? I understand that he has got many, many faults as well. However, he's definitely better than Netanyahu. Is he still surging in the polls?
He's not searching so much after saying that Israel is killing, I think it was children or babies in Gaza,
For as a sport?
systematically, to paraphrase. But to be honest, he scares me. After saying that, he came out a week later and said that actually Israel is not committing war crimes in Gaza. He makes all kinds of statements full of contradictions. And he scares me because he is this very cold general. I think he lacks compassion. He doesn't see the racist foundations of Israel. And during the first days after October 7th, he said something like, until we get our captives back, Gaza should starve. So I would advise people not to look up to him, not at all. So he said something about, Israel systematically, or something like, no country can kill children as a hobby, I think he said,
Yes, as a hobby or as a
as
sport.
a hobby on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Um, but these are all kinds of one-offs, and then he falls back on Zionist brutality, I would say, and he definitely supports the war of aggression on Iran. He released a statement last week saying that the home front matters, the people, the civilian population, we should all come together, and this is how we win and all that. And he can do some truly crazy things. And we have this history in Zionism where uh, these left-wing Zionist politicians have done some pretty extreme things, brutal things, if only to prove that they are patriotic. So in his own way, he is ruthless. I don't think he's surging so much since that statement, even though he has tried to sort of clarify and show that he is basically that he supports that what Israel is doing in Gaza is justifiable. But I think he's number 3 or 4 in the polls. Um, so not much
So
hope
is
in
there
him.
any hope in the 2026 elections, Ofer, for a different government that's not brutal?
Not really, not really. I mean, there is perhaps some hope for a government that would agree to leave Gaza and allow reconstruction. But beyond that, we're going to get another brutal Zionist government,
Yeah.
probably headed by Naftali Bennett, who is actually a far right figure. Far right figure. He used to work with Netanyahu. He was a minister in his coalition. For various reasons, he sort of became a part of the political center, but ideologically, he is sort of the religious settler type, and he's again gung-ho, arrogant, childish, opts for military solutions, believes that Israeli propaganda, hasbara, can solve everything, and that he can succeed at doing Israeli propaganda. He's likely to be our next prime minister. In some ways, it will be harder to confront him because Netanyahu is known by now. Netanyahu is a genocider, and it's easier to come out against Netanyahu than against someone like Bennett. So not real hope in the Israeli elections. Our effort should be international BDS, lobbying, um, but there is an ongoing process, I would say, long-term process of collapse in Israel, which gives me, I have to say, gives me some hope,
Mhm.
because otherwise we're not going to see a change through the Israeli parliament, at least not in the foreseeable future.
Do you want to tell me a little bit about what that hope is?
Well, this is not a pleasant story, but I
Okay.
think I can see for myself that people are leaving Israel, especially liberals, and this makes Israel weaker economically, professionally, diplomatically. People realize that they have no future here with these policies. There's also another question about the Israeli economy. The economy isn't doing so well right now. Prices are going up. Some people are losing their jobs. Some workplaces are shutting down. And now, especially with the war, um, there's even more of that shutdown. For example, the airports, we don't have regular flights going out right now. And one of the reasons I think is that the government is afraid of these images of Israelis rushing out, fleeing Israelis, which we are already seeing on the border crossing with Egypt down in the south, and people trying to flee to Cyprus by boat.
Mhm.
This is something that we're seeing, the world is seeing. So right now the airport is basically closed except for some flights bringing back Israelis who have been stranded abroad. Quite a few Israelis have been stranded abroad in the past week. But these flights, when the planes go out, Israel does not allow people to go abroad on these flights except for some rare cases.
Mm.
So the whole country is in shutdown mode, and
Why are they
right now
locking?
there's a
Why are they locking the Israelis in? Why are they locking you guys in? Because they don't want you to flee? What's the main
so
reason?
so I think that Israel, the Israeli government, doesn't want to let the world see Israelis landing in various places and saying that, that basically behaving as if they are refugees fleeing a war zone.
Mm,
Now, again, not much sympathy overall for most of these Israelis. Israel, again, is a genocidal aggressor, but they are fleeing a war zone. And if the world sees that, I think it makes Israel seem weaker.
understand.
But another reason could be perhaps that, I mean, it may create another problem. Israelis are fleeing abroad. What happens if they want to come back and the war is still raging? Then Israel's going to have the same problem. People stranded abroad, and how do you bring them back?
Hmm.
So, various considerations for Israel here.
Hmm. Understand. With respect to Zionism, I know that we discussed part of this in one of our previous interviews, and you mentioned that Zionism is falling. It is collapsing. There's only a few elements left, I think you mentioned. Would that be an accurate way of describing it? And if so, how is that collapse occurring?
Zionism is an ideology and it's also a label. For some people, it's a deep ideology. They have very strong convictions. Nowadays, it's mostly among the religious right. Historically, this is something that was driven by the Labor Party, Ben Gurion,
Mhm.
liberal Zionists. So, but most Israelis would say that we are Zionist, of course, but for most, it's basically it's just a label. There are no deep convictions, and that's why so many people have a foreign passport, and so many people are leaving, and others will leave. In that sense, Zionism is falling apart. Don't believe that Israel is a safe place, and I would say that there is a sizable minority that doesn't believe that Israel has the moral high ground as well. Um, so I think that nowadays people who have strong Zionist convictions, especially the religious right, they are not liberal. They have rel this is combined with religious fanaticism and racism and genocidal thought. So
Would you say
Zionism
that they
now.
are a minority in Israel?
The religious right is a minority, but it's a powerful minority that has been dragging the entire spectrum to the right. The center nowadays sounds like the right wing, perhaps the far right 2 decades ago. And of course, this government is a far right government, and the brutality of the Israeli military is aligned with far-right thinking. There are also more and more far-right officers in religious right officers in the IDF in key positions.
Mhm.
Um, so they're not a majority. And again, Netanyahu is about, or at least was about, still according to the latest poll yesterday, is about to lose the election. So that's Netanyahu and the ultra-Orthodox and the religious right. They
Mhm.
don't have a majority in Israeli society. From another perspective, this is another indictment of Israeli society. The centrists and the liberals, the pilots who are slaughtering children in Gaza, most of them are secular liberal, who are making this possible. So even if these people, the centrists and the liberal Zionists, they don't have this religious fanaticism in them, they have a lot of hatred and racism. They don't see Palestinians as human beings. They are militarists. So this is another way of seeing Zionism
Mhm.
among the center here in Israel, the brutal genocidal center. Um, so Zionism as an ideology, it's more complex because still, I mean, there are so many people here who would still say that they're Zionists, but there are various collapse processes in Israel. Just, I mean, the fact that people are leaving um, and other examples. Um, so there's an outlook here of for Israel to collapse at a growing pace.
Why would you say that the Israelis are so in support of the war with Iran?
Fear, hatred, indoctrination. It's very easy. I mean, and after you're, sort of drilling into their minds that Iran poses an existential threat, um, and also it's very easy if people are see Iranian missiles landing here. It's easy to opt for the shallow explanation that, they're just trying to destroy us. Um, so there's so much militarism and tribalism here, indoctrination, and Islamophobia as well. It's super easy to convince Israelis that Iran, first of all, wants a nuclear weapon, which is not, I'm not sure at all that this is the case, and that Iran also has plans to destroy Israel. Um,
Considering that Netanyahu has been saying the same thing since, I don't know, the earliest recordings, 1995, maybe
yeah,
longer,
yeah, yeah, longer.
longer. Yeah. Is anybody in Israel saying, okay, but we've heard this before? This is the same record playing, and yet we were the country that striked first. Is anybody saying that?
Some people are saying that, but if you look at mainstream commentators, even those who are critical, they criticize things which are marginal to this whole story. For example, why doesn't Netanyahu care about the suffering of civilians facing all these missiles? Why is he hiding in his bunker? What's his exit strategy? Um, there are very few leading commentators saying this is outright a war of aggression. This is wrong. We don't believe the Israeli government claims that Iran was on the verge of having a nuclear weapon, and that even if they uh, did, they have no plans to drop a nuclear bomb on Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Such criticism is coming from the sidelines mostly. Um, so some of the main commentators who are more critical, they're asking about the exit strategy, and this in itself is a good claim. It's not the strongest counter argument here, but yeah, I mean, we are being dragged into a war of attrition, and you could and should ask, what is Netanyahu's exit strategy here?
And if you could also explain to us, I understand that they had started negotiations and they were given 62 days to complete or to re-meet again and recommence negotiations. And on day 60, Israel striked. And they still had another 48 hours of potentially coming to the table.
So I'm not sure about the precise timing of 60, 61, 62. What we can tell for sure is that there was some major deception here by the US for Israel. And again, the Trump administration has been lying for Israel, deceiving also with the Hamas, for example, when the Israeli-American captive Idan Alexander was released. We have information about Stephen Witkoff, Trump's Middle East envoy, telling Hamas, promising them that the war would end quite soon after the release of Alexander, which did not happen. So the U.S. is basically lying for Israel, and there was another round of talks scheduled to take place, I think, last Sunday, which was canceled, of course. So overall, the U.S., the Trump administration, has been negotiating in bad faith, to put it mildly. It's hard to see the Iranians trusting them after this war. They would probably demand some guarantees just for the purpose of relaunching negotiations.
Where do you see it heading, Ofer?
So it's quite clear that Israel and the US are interested in regime change. At first, they said this is only about destroying elements of the nuclear program and forcing Iran to negotiate. Then Trump and others said total surrender, and also they started talking about assassinating Khamenei, the supreme leader. Um, and it seems that they are interested in regime change and also in destroying um, the main underground nuclear facility in Fordo, which is almost 100 meters, up to 100 meters underground. And it's very hard to destroy that. This is something that they may try to do either by US bombing. Israel doesn't have the bombs apparently to do that, doesn't have the bombers, the strategic bombers, and the bombs, 13-ton bombs. That's 30,000 pounds, I think, 12-ton bombs. The US does, or a commando raid, which could be either Israeli or American or both. These seem to be the main targets, and this means a war of attrition. I don't think um, Iran is not going to surrender. So there are some specific questions here. Can they destroy Fordo? Maybe, but people are telling us that this will set back the Iranians, that it will set them back a year or so. So not that drastic. Can they assassinate the supreme leader? Probably. I think he's 86, 87 years old, not in good health. He has a successor. The Iranians are probably not going to rise up. If anything, they're rallying around Iran, even if it's not around the leader and the regime, they're coming together against this aggression. According to what I'm seeing, most Iranian dissidents are opposed to this war of aggression,
Mhm.
first and foremost. And most of them, I think, see um, Iran developing its own nuclear energy project as a matter of national pride and sovereignty,
Mhm.
uh, regardless of nuclear weapons. Because according to the US, I mean, according to some of the demands, Iran should just give up its entire nuclear program, including the civilian energy program. I don't think Iran and Iranian dissidents will accept that. Um, what else can I say? There's a question about how many missiles Iran and launchers Iran has left in storage to hit Israel, because as long as Iran has that, Israel will be hit hard. So according to various estimates, Iran still has something like 80% or more of its missiles. Also has lots of drones.
Mhm.
In terms of the launchers, we're not sure. Some are saying that Israel has destroyed more than half of the launchers. Um, but even if Iran loses its capacity to launch rockets, it can still probably produce a few launchers at a time and still do some damage. And I don't think they will surrender. So, what does this mean for Israel and the United States? Boots on the ground? Are they going to send soldiers in? Maybe for a specific raid, but not to just occupy Iran, which is a huge country. Continue bombing Iran. What are their targets right now? Alienating the Iranian people. How can they win? And on top of that, if Israel escalates or the U.S. escalates, if they assassinate the supreme leader or try to attack the Fordow site, there's a lot of damage that Iran can do in the Strait of Hormuz, which is the main pipeline for oil, for global oil.
Mhm.
They can block it. They can attack oil facilities, Saudi oil facilities, for example, if Saudi Arabia allows the US to strike Iran from US bases in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of damage that Iran can do. So in terms of the exit strategy, I think that Netanyahu is trying to drag the US into war. There was definitely a lot of coordination between the
Mhm.
US and Iran, but I'm not sure that there was the entire plan was devised together by the US and Israel, and there may be some disagreements. So to me, it seems that Netanyahu informed the US of the general outline here, timing, strategic goals, and so on. But he's now trying to drag the U.S. Into war, um, and I don't see a successful exit strategy here for either Israel or the U.S.
Mhm. What will the outcome be? Everybody ceases fire, lots of dead people on both sides, civilians injured. What was the point?
So the point again is distraction, Netanyahu's political survival, going down in history as a hero, uniting Israeli society around war, and his perhaps his own deep convictions about Iran. I think he has very strong ideological convictions far-right convictions. He does see Iran as as a threat, and if it's not an existential threat, it's certainly a threat to Israeli hegemony, which is another thing to discuss. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Iran counters Israeli hegemony in the Middle East. That it's the most important player, almost a single player, being capable of doing so. Um, and Israel is a very is an expansionist. Again, I keep saying that rogue nuclear genocidal apartheid state, an expansionist state, one that has invaded other parts of the Middle East, has attacked other parts of the Middle East. Iran has not invaded other countries. Iran is much more defensive. It's much weaker. So there's also a battle for hegemony here in the Middle East. And it would also be interesting to look at what the Gulf states decide. Apparently, nowadays, they are much more cautious about supporting Israel. I think that since October 7th, they're seeing that Israel perhaps is not so reliable, not so stable, genocidal, that supporting Israel is also could mean death for Arab dictators who choose to do that against uh, the opinion of their own population. And they seem to be opposed to this war of aggression, and they have recently developed better relations with Iran. It would be interesting to see how they react. On top of these statements against the war, again, for example, are they going to allow the US to strike Saudi Arabia from their own, to strike Iran from their own soil, for example, Saudi Arabia?
Mm. Thank you, Ofer. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add to today?
Yeah, so the Gaza genocide, um, it's a done deal. Unfortunately, we can save more than 1 million people. We should work so hard on it. We should keep Gaza in the news. We should hold Israel accountable. We should also hold complicit Western politicians because Western governments knew what was going on. We're seeing the reports coming out now. They knew. And those Western leaders must be brought to justice. And in terms of our outreach to the general population in the West, we should tell people, especially those who are liberal, Democrats, support human rights and international law, that after what Israel has done, if this becomes acceptable, no one is safe in this world. That this has global repercussions, and this should matter to all of us. So we should campaign to, I say, basically dismantle Israel and establish a democracy here and hold Israel accountable. But we should also hold Western politicians accountable and make it quite clear that we understand that this is about basic human rights for everyone. We either have this in our world or we don't. And it's basically Israel versus anyone who wants a safe world.
They've been unmasked, haven't they?
Yep, yep. They've lost most of their support. Who supports Israel nowadays? Religious fanatics, far-right figures, um, some Zionists. I mean,
Who are
Jewish
religious
Zionists.
fanatics?
Yeah, I mean Christian Zionists, Jewish Zionists, members of the tribe, the far right, and political elites in the West. And those political elites in the West should be held accountable. But Israel has lost the war for public opinion, and I think that Israel has also lost strategically the war for its existence, at least as what it is now. And perhaps the West will still be able to sort of salvage Israel based on some so-called two-state solution, but this would still mean that Israel would have to withdraw from the West Bank, almost all of it, Gaza, and Israelis would be dragged to courts for genocide and crimes against humanity, and that this current political system in Israel would cease to exist.